Hello guys, can you hear me? Could you please quickly confirm, guys, if you can hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear your voice clear.
Thanks for the confirmation. So welcome to Pilot Labs. This is a free webinar which will help you gain more knowledge on a technical aspect of the CCNA course. Again, I am Sohail. I am a senior technical trainer at Pilot Labs. I deal with Cisco-related technologies. Okay, so guys, at any point in time, if you do not hear my voice or is there a problem with the visuals maybe, okay, please let me know as soon as possible. So now I know where to stop and how to proceed then on. Okay, guys, can you quickly confirm if you heard that? Okay, so at any point in time, if you do not hear my voice, please let me know as soon as possible so I know where to start from. Okay, now the topic for the day, of course, is what we are going to discuss is VLAN. And as such, it deals with switching, right? It deals with the concept of switching. There are two major aspects when you learn CCNA, and those are switching and routing. Okay, there are two major parts. The VLAN concept is related to switching. Does anybody know what layer does switching deal with? Like what is like the switch deal with? What layer in the OSI model? You can use your voice, no problem, to answer the query.
Layer 2.
Layer 2, right? So you have 7 layers in the OSI model, and you have switches which work at layer 2. It's a layer 2 technology, right? So the switch is an L2 technology, meaning a layer 2 technology, and as such, it does not really function to interconnect networks, right? It works on a single network only, right? It works on a single network only. That is the usual case. We are talking about the L2 switches, meaning the layer 2 switches, right? So it does not really deal with you helping you to connect with multiple networks or anything like that. No, what it deals with is that it helps you connect with a single network. So in very simple terms, if you have a switch like this, okay, and you have two PCs, let's say A and B, and as long as these are on the same network, right, meaning if you know let them use like 192.168, okay, meaning as a whole network, they are dealing with okay. So if it is 192.168.0.0, if it's the network and one of the PCs is using 0.1 and 0.2, meaning there is nobody stopping the devices from being communicated together, right? Using a switch, they can communicate together. The reason for this is something which is called as a broadcast domain. Okay, there is something which is called as a broadcast domain. Does anybody know what's a broadcast domain, by the way? Have you heard of the term broadcast domain? Nobody?
It's like one-to-many communication.
No, so that's broadcast, right? But there's a term which is called as broadcast domain. You're right when you say, and it absolutely has to deal with broadcast. See, what happens is, so she's absolutely right when she says, that it deals with broadcast communication, right? Meaning it is one to all, right? Meaning, so if there are like, let's say 3 people connected on the network or 3 devices connected on the network, and one of them sends some information, that other two will also receive it. That is called as broadcast, right? Meaning everything is just broadcasted, meaning one to all sort of a communication, right? That is called as a broadcast communication, right? By the way, guys, just confirm if you can see the PPT and me writing, right? Can you quickly confirm these?
Yeah.
You can see it, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. So what's happening really is that this is because of a broadcast domain. Now, what is a broadcast domain? Basically, see, the switch has something called as one broadcast domain. Okay. Now, what that technically means is that the switch is essentially able to broadcast. Okay. I mean, it does unicast it when you are actually communicating and when it has its MAC table formed. However, when it does not have it ready, the switch essentially broadcasts stuff, right, to gain more knowledge about the network and who's connected to what and stuff like that. However, the point is that all the ports in the switches, they fall under one single broadcast domain. What this technically means is that if you broadcast something to one of the ports, the other ports will also receive that message. Is it clear? That is called as a broadcast domain, meaning the switch is like one entire broadcast domain, right? Meaning you broadcast something and the other ports will also receive the same message. That is called as a broadcast domain. So essentially the broadcast domain is like one for the entire switch, right? For the switch, it is like one broadcast domain. Meaning, if you have PCs connected together and like in the scenario that we just discussed, if they have the same network, there is nothing stopping them from, communicating to one another. Okay, that's the default scenario. Okay, what if you do not want that to happen? All right, so what I mean to say is, let's say you have a switch and you have certain PCs connected to it. Maybe you have like two PCs here, just as an example, and you have two PCs here. Okay, and let's name them. So there is A, B, C, and D, right? And all of them are on the same network, meaning 192.168.0.0, and one of them is 0.1, the other is 0.2, the other is 0.3, and like 0.4. Meaning, of course, they are on the same network and using this same network, which is of class C. Of course, they are able to communicate with one another, which is fine. But let's say the management decided one day that this should not happen. Why? Because what they decided was that the PC A and B, they maybe belong to the sales department, right? And these people C and D, they belong to the accounts department. Now what they want is to split them. They don't want them to communicate anymore, in fact, right? So is there something that can help us with this thing? Yes, you can create VLANs. Okay, what you can do is you can create VLANs. Now, what is a VLAN? So VLAN is nothing but virtual LAN. You know what is virtual, right? Virtual meaning logical. Virtual means logical, right? It's a logical LAN. It is not a physical LAN. It is a logical LAN, and you're creating it. By default, this switch right now with the connection as shown in the schematic is a physical LAN, right? It's everything is connected in one single LAN. Am I right? However, what we want to do right now is split the LAN into two different departments. All right, we want to create like two different logical VLANs, so that these two sets of machines do not communicate anymore. Is that clear? For this purpose, what you can do is you can create two VLANs, maybe. So let's say VLAN 1 and 2. Is that clear? Any queries you can freely ask.
It is clear.
Yeah, and you can also use your voice if it is more convenient to you. No issues. Only that if there's a background noise, you can then mute yourself after like asking the query. All right. So essentially what you are doing here, technically speaking, as like network engineers or belonging to this field, or maybe in the future, what you need to know is technically what is happening. Okay, so we just discussed the broadcast domain, right? Broadcast domain is any part of the domain, any part of the network, which if one of the ports like receives a message, it is broadcasted to everywhere else, right? It is that part of a network which receives the broadcast communication, that is called as a broadcast domain, right? And we discussed that a switch generally is one broadcast domain, and hence it can like receive and send broadcast, and that is why like everybody can communicate with one another. In fact, when you get a switch by default, there is one single broadcast domain, right? Everybody is connected into that broadcast domain, and hence everybody is able to communicate with one another. However, what we are doing right now when we create a VLAN is we are splitting the broadcast domain. Okay, we are splitting the broadcast domain into multiple parts. In our case, it is VLAN 1 and VLAN 2. Right, so these two things will now behave like separate networks. Essentially what VLAN is like splitting a network into parts. Okay, splitting a physical LAN or a network into parts, smaller parts, you could say. Clear? So you can of course go on splitting, then we'll get into more details a little later on, but I hope the concept is sort of clear, right? This is what the VLAN is essentially, right? You basically create logical smaller LANs, okay, so that you can split the thing. Of course, now why would you want to do this? All right, why would you want to do this now? This, like we just discussed, okay, maybe it is related to some management thing, right? Meaning you want to manage things better, you want to make the communication more efficient. It can also be for security reasons, right? I want to split things up, right? So these can be like the reasons why you want to essentially be creating VLANs in the first place. Is it clear?
Yes.
All right, now some things that you need to know. Now there are different protocols that enable you to do it, right? Now there were many, in fact, even from Cisco there was ISL, and you also have a different protocol as well from 3Com. Okay, but then currently what is being used is something which is called as .1q, right? It's an encapsulation .1q thing, which helps you create VLANs, okay, meaning it deals with everything related to VLANs. Now, the thing is that the Cisco also had a protocol which was called the ISL. But now it has gotten deprecated, okay, meaning it is not used anymore because of its limitations and stuff. But yeah, so Cisco had this protocol which was called as inter-switch link, and it is not used anymore, right? So you have other protocol which is like widely used, for this purpose, and it's called the encapsulation.1q. Now that enables you to create a number of VLANs. Okay, it helps you create a specific number of VLANs which you should be aware of, and it has a particular range. Now before that, you also need to know that every VLAN that you create, okay, every VLAN that you create it has its own ID. Okay, it has its own ID, which is a numerical number. Right, it's a numerical number. And also, so this is very significant for the VLAN to have its own like number. This is extremely significant because you will refer to the VLAN with this number, right? Apart from that, however, the VLAN will also have its name, okay, which is not very significant in terms of networking or switching things, but I mean, yeah, it's there. Okay, so it has a name and an ID. Now, what is the range of the number that you can have? Okay, with the current thing, the numerical range of the like VLAN. Okay, so essentially what you could do is you could create about like 4096 VLANs, okay, in total. Okay, but of course there are segregations to that. So what you have is from 0, right, to 4095. Now the first and the very last one are reserved, they are not used. All right, but apart from that, VLAN 1 is something there by default. So when we were discussing, that you have a switch and uh, all the devices are connected to it and everything just communicates. One of the reasons is that when you bring in a switch, okay, when you like just bought in a switch, all of its port, okay, like we discussed that everything just falls in one broadcast domain, and also technically that because you already have VLAN 1 on the switch, whether you do anything or not, meaning you change the configuration or you don't change the configuration or like whatever you, by default, all the ports, they are a part of VLAN 1. It's there by default, whether you do anything or you don't do anything, everything is just there. The VLAN is just there and all the ports are by default in VLAN 1. Okay, that way the VLAN 1 is called the default VLAN. Why? Because it is already there. Something to note is that I mean, of course, you can like alter it, meaning you can remove ports and you can add all the ports are already there, right? But you can of course remove ports from the VLAN and put it in another. However, you cannot delete this VLAN. Okay, so no deletion is allowed. Also, you cannot modify it, right? Meaning you cannot change the name. It is there by default, right? The name is default and you cannot do anything about it. By default, all the ports are in VLAN 1. Clear? Now, from VLAN number 2, right, to 1001, you can modify, you can create VLANs, you can do all these things yourself, right? So here is what you can do, like you can create VLANs, you can modify VLANs, right? Like you can do all of that. Okay, from 1000 to 1006. Okay, 1002 to 1005 is again something which is reserved. Okay, you cannot modify them. All right. Now, after this, from 1006 to 4095, sorry, 4094 is again something that you can create. These are like normal VLANs, but these are called as extended VLANs. Okay, now extended VLAN is actually supposed to be used for with in conjunction with something called as BTP. It's a protocol for that is related to VLANs, and it is used for sharing of database. So basically, I think it's a topic for another day, honestly speaking. But just saying that it can only be created for this range. So 1006 to 4094, this can only be created on switches with VTP transparent mode enabled. Okay, so there is something called as VTP transparent mode on the switches, which are like VLANs for their own local switch level network, right? And again, there are some other changes to it, meaning where they are saved and all of that. Okay, but I think this is a topic for another day. So let's just keep it to this point here. Okay, so far so good. Any doubts, any queries so far? You can certainly ask. Any doubts, any queries so far, guys? No, should I proceed? Okay, then VLAN also has, types of membership. Okay, VLAN has different types of membership. The first one is called as static. Okay, so the first one is called as static. Now, what is static? So first of all, guys, remember that when you're talking about a switch and it's VLAN, okay, please remember that when you say, this PC is in a particular VLAN, it is not the PC, honestly speaking. Okay, it is the port which is in a particular VLAN. All right. So this is manually adding ports in a particular VLAN. Right. So you manually add ports in a VLAN, and that is also called as a port-based membership. Right. So what that means is I will select individual ports, right, and I will put them in different VLANs. All right. So for example, let's say VLAN like 1, and these 2 ports be in like VLAN 2, like so on and so forth. But it is the ports that we are putting in different VLAN. It is not the machine. It has nothing to do with the device. For example, if somebody by mistakenly connects this machine to VLAN 2 port, then this machine is now part of VLAN 2. Are you clear? It is not the device that we are connecting it into. It is the ports that are a part of different VLANs. Is that clear? So this is called as port-based membership, right? And this is static in nature, right? You have to do it like manually. However, that is not to say that the dynamic does not exist, right? There is also a different variant which is called as dynamic VLAN. Here, basically, you assign VLANs, basically, right? Based on identification of the device. So here is where you actually like assign a port to a specific VLAN based on the device's MAC address, right? So you assign a port with a specific VLAN based on the MAC address of the machine connected to it. Can somebody tell me what a MAC address is? Yes, guys, does anybody know what MAC address is? What is a MAC address? You can turn on your mic and you can like see.
It is the physical address that's available on the machine.
Yeah, right. It's the physical address which is already available on the machine. It's on your NIC card basically. It is assigned to it. So in the dynamic VLAN, what you have is basically the port which is not assigned to any VLAN as yet. But as soon as you let's say connect a PCA, okay, Now this PCA's MAC address is identified, and it is identified whether this has to be part of, let's say, VLAN 1 or 2 or whatever. And then this port is accordingly moved into that VLAN based on what? Based on the MAC address of the machine. Okay. Now the configuration of this is pretty much complex, and it also requires a VLAN membership policy server to set it up and like things like that, right? So you have two types of memberships. One is static and the other is dynamic. Any doubts so far?
No.
All right. Okay. Apart from that, you have to absolutely have to understand, that there are two types of ports on a switch, because to configure, and we'll be moving to the configuration as soon as possible after this. But just saying, okay, that you have types of ports on the switches which you need to be well aware of. Okay, now what are those types of ports? So the first one is called as access port. All right, the first type of port is access port. Now what is an access port? So let's say you have a switch, all right, and this switch has a PC connected to it. Now the PC or a server, for even for that matter, right, these are end user devices, right? These are not networking devices, I can say, right? These are end user devices. And whenever you have end devices connected to a port, that port is called as a access port, right? So I can say the access port is what? It is like connected to end user device. All right. Now, something very important about the access port is that it can be part of only one VLAN. Okay. Okay. Now, what this means is that either it can be, so for example, let's say, this particular port. Okay. Here, let's say this port is fast Ethernet 0/2. Now, fast Ethernet 0/2 can itself only be, let's say, part of, maybe VLAN 2 or 1 or whatever, but it can be part of only one VLAN. You cannot have multiple VLANs associated with an access port. Okay. Now, the type of port. Okay, but this is not always the case. You do not have all ports connected to end devices. Do you have it? No, right? There may be a scenario where you have like a switch 1, all right, and which is connected to switch 2, right? And you will need to connect these together. By the way, can somebody tell me what type of cable do we use to connect same devices or a switch to switch together? Do we use straight cable or do we use cross cable? Cross cable, right? Because it's a same category device. Okay, be careful about connecting it. Even in packet tracer, the software, right, the thing you can do like scenarios on. So like, yeah, be like careful that you have to use the cross cable. All right, now let's say in this case, okay, now because I have connected two switches together and I have used a particular port to connect these switches together on both sides, like one port on switch 1 on one port on the switch 2. And let's say switch 1 has like, like multiple VLANs. Okay, maybe VLAN like VLAN 1 and maybe also VLAN 2 and stuff like that. Okay, so for it to send information via this, this link over here in between the switches, it is only possible that when this is not a part of any of the VLAN, right? I hope you understand, because a port may be part of a particular VLAN, right? Maybe VLAN 1, 2, 3, whatever. But then this path between the switches, this cross cable, this link is supposed to carry numerous VLAN data, right? It cannot be a part of one of the VLANs. If it was so, then it would block the all other VLANs, right? Meaning this sort of has to be some neutral party. right? Not a part of any of the VLANs, or maybe it allows all VLANs, something like that, right? So that kind of something is called as the trunk port. The trunk port is a port which is connected to other switches or routers. Okay, so if you have a router connected to a switch, so you can like do that. Okay, so connected to other switches or routers, this is called as a trunk port. All right. Now, something which is very important about the trunk port is that please remember that it can carry multiple VLAN data. Okay, it can carry multiple VLAN data. Hence, it is able to carry all the VLAN information across these switches. Yeah. Any queries, guys, so far? Anything at all? Okay, then let's look at the command and then we'll actually proceed to implementing VLANs and configuring it, right? So the command, how do you create a VLAN in the first place? Okay, the command to do that is in the configuration mode. You will be using the switch. You will be going into first the user mode, then enabling it, then going to the configuration mode. So in the configuration mode, what you will be writing is just this. Okay, so just VLAN and the ID, and that's it. The VLAN is created. As simple as that. All right, the VLAN and the ID. For example, if you write VLAN space 2, VLAN 1 is already there. Okay, so you don't need to create it again. It's, I mean, you cannot even create it anyway. So VLAN, let's say if I write 2, okay, as a command, VLAN 2, if I write, VLAN 2 is created. Okay, of course it will be empty, but it is created, it's there, right? And then you will have to move ports into the particular VLAN. Now, once you hit enter, right, then you can assign a name to the VLAN. For example, let's say accounts. Clear? If I want to see this VLAN that I created, what you can do is issue the command show VLAN. Now, please remember the show command, it runs only in the privilege mode, right? The show command runs only in the privilege mode. Okay, at least this part, let's do it on the packet tracer first, and then let's move ahead with it. Is it okay? Yes, can you confirm if you can see my packet tracer screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just grab a switch, nothing fancy. Okay, it's just a usual switch, 2950. Guys, if you could please mute yourself. There's a little background noise coming in. Thank you. Okay, so you have this switch which is 2950. Right, nothing fancy here, just a basic switch. Now, without me doing anything, okay, let's not even connect the PCs at the moment. If I go to the CLI thing, if I go into the privilege mode, I hope everybody knows about the modes, iOS modes, right? The user mode, you put in the command enable and you go to privilege mode. In the privilege mode, what you will do is issue the command. If I do show VLAN, okay, you can see that I have VLAN 1 already and its name is default. The status is active. And can you see that all ports are in VLAN 1 by default? Right? All my ports are in VLAN 1. Can you see?
Could you explain like 1002, 1003 token ring default?
Those are for token rings. Those are already there. Those are by default. You cannot really modify them. They are again like default type of VLANs, which you cannot really modify. These are like token ring things.
Is it this token ring? Is it related to ring topology?
It is actually a technology. So token ring is a different technology. Like you have Ethernet, right? You have a different technology which is token ring. It is a separate, yeah, it is a separate like working of the internet network in a sense.
Okay, we'll check this in the later.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a yeah. So
Thank you.
basically, it's a link for like LAN in which like devices are connected in a ring or like yeah. And so what really happens in short, okay. Otherwise, we like deviate a lot from the topic. So what really happens is why is it called token ring? Okay, so what really happens, so when you said that is it like they are connected in a ring, could be, okay, but it can also be that they are connected in a star topology. You know what star topology is, right? Using a
Yes.
switch, yeah. What really happens is, and why you call it a like a token ring is basically you pass tokens from host to host. Okay, actually
Okay.
this was earlier than like what we are using right now. It's an like older thing, meaning what happens is you like pass tokens between host, and whichever host receives the token can send the data. Understood?
Okay.
It is like passing
Yeah.
the ball. It is like passing the ball. Have you seen the game?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
This happens in ring topology. Yeah. Whenever
Yeah, so like that.
success token, yeah, it can
Yes,
transmit. Yes.
yes. So basically like the host who holds the token can send the data, and tokens are like released when the receipt is confirmed. So basically, let's say I'm holding the token, I will send the data. Once you receive it and you say, okay, I've received the data, okay, is when I let go of the token. Clear?
All right. Got it.
Now, IBM had introduced this in 1980s. If I'm not
Oh,
wrong, I'm not very sure of the like date and all, but like it was like an older thing. Okay, so it is an alternative to Ethernet technology. Okay, so Ethernet
okay.
is
Got it.
yeah, yeah. So it's like that.
Got
Okay,
it. Thank
yeah.
you.
So basically, token ring, they again do the same thing, provide like prevent from like collisions in the network and like things like that, and like so like that. It's kind of a thing.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, like that. Okay, now as you can see, I don't have any other VLANs apart from the default ones that are already present on my like VLAN and stuff. It's just VLAN 1 by default, and it's active, and all the ports from 1 to 24 are there on my VLAN 1. But I need to change this. Okay, but then first let's add our PCs. Okay, so let's just quickly grab onto some PCs. Okay, and let's connect them together. So using straight cables, I will simply connect them to my switch. Okay, and it will remain amber for about 50 seconds. Does anybody know why? As you can see, I've connected the switches like to my PCs, and it's still amber and it is doing something. And if you honestly know the exact time, it is 50 seconds. Does anybody know why this is like exact 50 seconds, and like what is going on? What is it called?
Yeah.
Maybe
Is
due
it
to
listening time of STP?
STP, right? It's a spanning tree
Yeah.
protocol. Basically, that is it is thinking, to prevent loops and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although not
Disable the clock.
required. Yeah, so you can disable it if you want to, like in the port fast mode. But that, again, that's a thing for the some next webinar. Okay. Uh, yeah. So what we'll do is let's decide on the network part. Okay. So what we are going to use is like very simple 0.0 as a network 192.168.0/24, meaning a class C network, and let's assign the PCs accordingly. So I'll keep this as like 0.1, and I'll just have this as 0.2. Let's also assign IP addresses that way. Okay, so like 192.168.0.1. I hit tab. Is gateway required? Guys, is gateway required? And do we have a gateway yet?
I don't believe gateways required because we are not getting out of the network.
Absolutely right. So very accurate answer, because gateways are only required for inter-network communication, right? Do I have any other network here? Of course not. I don't have it, right? And since I don't have it, I don't need a gateway, right? So gateways are only required when, and particularly gateway anyway is the route, like the router interface, right? Please remember, guys, that you need the router interface for moving between, as you very rightly said. So to move between networks, you need a gateway. It's like a door, and hence the name gateway. Here, anyway, not required. Let's copy the address so that it's a little more convenient. Here, I will paste the address, making a minor change of 0.2. Now, since it's a class C thing, right? If I, right, of course, because I'm connected in one single network and both the ports are in one VLAN, of course, they are communicating together. However, let's say that is not to be the case anymore. Okay, maybe someone in the organization, decided that this is an HR PC and maybe this is an account PC, and I don't really, want them to communicate anymore. Okay, maybe because of efficiency or management issues or confidentiality or whatever, but then we cannot risk them being like unnecessarily communicating with one another. So what you need to do is you need to move the other port, right? I'll just switch on the port labels for your better convenience. Okay, this port here, as you can see, this is fast Ethernet 0/2. Can you see the port? That port we are going to move into VLAN 2. But do I have VLAN 2? No, right? So first of all, I'll just create VLAN 2. How do you do that? So you'll go to the configuration mode, right? And what you type in is just VLAN 2. You hit enter. As you can see now, you are in the configuration mode, you're in VLAN configuration. And you can assign a name for that. So name is what? Name maybe accounts, right? And yeah, like that's it, enter, okay? Now, if I want to check this, all right, how can I do this? So in the privilege mode, I'll go and I'll issue the command show VLAN. Okay. Now earlier, you saw that there was only one VLAN, right? It was VLAN 1 and the name was default and is active and all the ports are in VLAN 1. Still it is the case. However, you will see that VLAN 2 is also created now. All right. VLAN 2 is also created now. The name accounts which I gave, it is active, but can you see any ports in it? No, right? It's empty. I will need to change that. How do you change that? So let's first document the command and then move on to proceeding it. Okay, so what you need to do is in the configuration mode, okay, let's say you were to move interface, fast Ethernet 0/2 in my case, which is the case, right? First of all, I need to tell the switch that, that this port is an access port. Okay, we just discussed the access port. Do you remember what the access port is? It is connected to end devices, right? Am I right, guys?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Then what you need to do is after this, you hit enter, and then you will say to the switch that, okay, switch port access, meaning in access mode, you are a part of VLAN, let's say 2. Okay. Now this is telling the port that you are a part of VLAN 2. Is it clear? These two commands, yeah, these two commands have to go in so that you can configure it accordingly, right? So let's do that. Okay, so it's the same command that I just discussed. I'll go into the configuration mode. I'll type in interface fast Ethernet 0/2, right? Because that's the interface I want to move into VLAN 2, right? Or the one which is connected to the accounts PC. Now, what I will do is I will type in switch port mode, meaning it can be modes, right? The mode is currently access mode, right? Because I'm connected to an access device, end user device, right? Hence, I will put up access. Then in access mode, I need to tell the switch of what VLAN is this part of. So switch port access VLAN 2. I hit enter, right? And that's done. Okay, I come back, I'll save the configuration just out of, you should always save things, right? Finally, what you will do is you will do a show VLAN again. Now, can you see the difference? You have VLAN 1, you have default VLAN, the port is active, the status is active for the VLAN. However, now fast Ethernet 0/1, and then you directly have fast Ethernet 0/3. 0/2 is not here. Where is it gone? It is here. Okay, in VLAN 2. So VLAN 2 is the name, the ID. The name is accounts. It is active, and this is fast Ethernet 0/2 in it. Now, what is the output of it anyway? All right. So what we'll do is we'll try to ping each other. Can you see that we are no longer able to communicate with one another? This being a switch and this being like a physical LAN where the networks are the same, for some reason you are unable to ping. And why is that so? Because of the VLAN. Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear.
Okay. However, let's say you had like a similar, you maybe the office upgraded and you have a separate department in some other premise. Okay. And what you did was you have a separate switch here, right? You have a separate switch with its own PCs. Okay. But a similar structure. Again, you have, let's say, HR and you have accounts, like that, right? So of course, I can connect it in a similar way. Of course, the port numbers don't have to be the same, but just doing it for my easy reference. All right, so I've connected it. The network is still going to be the same. So here, let me just add the IP addresses first. So 192.168.0.3, right, and 0.4. Right. And of course, I'll just fast forward to the STP thing, just goes away. Okay. And again, if I were to communicate, of course, they can communicate, right? Again, but this is not something that I want, right? Why? Because again, this is HR and this will be in VLAN 1. And this is accounts, right? Which is in VLAN 2. Right. Now I'll do the same thing on the switch again, meaning I will move the interface fast Ethernet 0/. First of all, of course, I have to create a VLAN, right? First. So let's create a VLAN 2 here as well. Okay, name is accounts. Okay, if you were to see now show VLAN, if I do, of course it's the similar thing, same thing, right? So you also have like VLAN 1 here, which has all the ports. You have a VLAN 2 created now, which is empty. So let's just add the port. The process is the same, right? So you'll go to the configuration mode. You'll do interface fast Ethernet 0/2. I hope you remember the command. So switch port, mode, access. Am I correct? Switch port, then access VLAN 2. Right? If I do a show VLAN now, what you can see is VLAN 2 created with the interface moved when the port moved into VLAN 2. Of course, the output of it should be that I shouldn't be able to communicate with one another, meaning even on the same network, in even switch 2, I shouldn't be able to communicate, right? And that's happening. Okay, so the VLAN thing is done. However, of course, I would, since this is just one office, right? I need to have the offices connected together, right? Okay, now the thing is, just for like easy reference, I hope you understand that, this HR is one department, right? And the accounts is yet another department. Now, certainly, of course, I want the accounts and the account department to ping with one another, right? Certainly, of course, I want that to happen. However, if I tried it now, something like that wouldn't happen. Can you see it is failing? meaning my accounts and accounts department cannot ping with one another. I hope you understand why. What is the reason?
We are already creating VLAN 2 for account department
Mhm.
that we will be able to ping, but now for the
No.
agile.
We did that. We did that. No. So see, I'll tell you what is happening. Okay. In fact, you will see something very weird. Something that you'll see is that HR to HR. Let's try. Do you think it will ping or not? Can somebody tell me? Will it ping?
No, HR will not. HR is unable to ping.
It is pinging. Can you tell me why? Very interesting.
The same IP address range.
No, even the accounts department for that matter is in the same range. I'll tell you. So see, what is happening is, see, HR department is part of what VLAN? It is VLAN 1, right?
By default, yeah.
Yes. Even here the VLAN is 1. Here it is VLAN 2.
2.
Right? This is VLAN 2 again. What are these ports right now on?
Trunk port.
But I haven't done trunk port, right? So by default, aren't these in VLAN 1? Am I right? I haven't trunked it as yet. Therefore, aren't these automatically in VLAN 1 by default?
Yeah, right.
That is why right now HR is able to ping with HR because these ports themselves are on VLAN 1. Am I right? Now is it clear?
Yeah.
And however, VLAN 2 is not able to communicate because it certainly VLAN 1 will not allow VLAN 2 to pass through, right?
Because it's not trunk port.
Yes, absolutely. So to resolve this, what we need to do is these ports which are fast Ethernet 0/5, what I need to do is convert them into trunk ports, right? Trunk ports are ports which will allow multiple VLAN to pass through, right? So what you do is interface fast Ethernet 0/5. Okay, and what you do is switch port mode. This time it will be trunk. Is it clear? You hit enter. Of course, it is gonna like reswap things and internally. And can you see that it is saying on the other side, okay, this is inconsistent type of port because earlier this port on the other side was an access port. Now suddenly it is saying, oh, how on the other side it became trunk. So it is kind of confused right now. So let's help it with its confusion getting resolved. So even on this side, what we'll do is the interface is fast Ethernet 0/5. And what we will do is okay, so what we'll do is switch port mode. I will put it to trunk. All right.
Yeah, right.
Now, if I do show VLAN, you can see that fast Ethernet 0/5 is not being shown anywhere. Okay, so you have 1, 2 is moved to the VLAN 2, 3, then 4, and you straight away have 6. Okay, to see what ports are currently in trunk mode, what is the command? The command is show
Show trunk.
interfaces trunk, right? You can do show interfaces trunk, and you can see that the ports are fast Ethernet 0/5.
Yeah, right.
Is it clear? And by default, it is allowed to have all the VLANs to pass through. Now the output of it, let's check the output. Now it should be proper, okay, meaning HR should be able to communicate with HR. As you can see, that is successful. That was anyway successful before as well because of VLAN 1. Okay, now we'll try pinging accounts with accounts. Can you see that this is successful again, right? However, what shouldn't be possible still is HR pinging with accounts on the other side as well. Okay. Yep, that is failing, right? Meaning now I have a completely working scenario. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Now, Yeah, by default, see, trunk allows all VLAN to pass through, meaning whatever VLANs you have, you are allowed to pass through like everything, right? That's all allowed. However, I can prevent that from happening. Okay, meaning if I still want to, I mean, I've configured trunk port, haven't I? I have, right? However, if I still wanted to block, VLAN 2 from being passed through, what I can do is I can issue the command switch port trunk, okay, allowed VLAN, meaning I'm saying allowed VLAN, I'm saying remove VLAN 2. Is this command clear? In the trunk mode, what I'm saying is in the allowed VLAN category, I want the 2 to be removed. Clear? I hit enter. Okay. If I do show interfaces trunk now, can you see that we can now not see VLAN 2 being mentioned anywhere that it is allowed in the trunk thing? Is it clear? Meaning what I'm doing is I'm blocking VLAN 2 from being passed through in the trunk mode. I can do the same thing on the other side as well. Earlier you can see VLAN 2 was mentioned, right? But right now what I want is, if I want to, I can block VLAN 2 if I wanted to. Okay, how do you do that? So interface fast Ethernet 0/5. Okay, what do you do? What do you do, guys? Switch port trunk
Switch trunk VLAN
allowed VLAN
VLAN 5
remove
remove VLAN 5.
Yeah, remove 2. Okay, so I will remove 2 so that 2 can no longer communicate. Right, now let's see the output of it. I mean, let's fast forward things so that everything is updated and stuff. Okay, now although this is a trunk port in the middle, right, faster than a 0/5, will accounts be pinging with accounts on the other side? That shouldn't be the case. Okay, so let's try it out. Is it failing? Yes. Is it clear? Okay, so I hope you like understood the commands. Okay, I'll be just document the commands as well as a last bit. Any other queries you have, guys? Okay, so what we did was to make the trunk port. What is the command, guys? Can somebody help me out here? So let's say fast Ethernet 0/5. I want to make this trunk. What is the command that I can put?
Switch ports.
Yes. Mode trunk.
Switch
Right?
mode
Mode trunk. Right?
Trunk.
And what is the command to like this like allow disallow like VLANs from our range of things?
switch port trunk allowed VLAN
Switch port, first of all, trunk
Mode.
allowed
allowed VLAN 2.
VLAN, right? So in this case, we are going to remove it. Hence, we are writing the keyword remove. You can also like write add, and you can add things, right? So like there are two different things. Okay, but we haven't added it. But of course, like if I want to normalize things, for example, okay, like if somebody told me no, now VLAN 2 should be allowed again. Okay, for example, what I'll do is interface, fast Ethernet 0/5. Okay, what I will do is similarly in trunk thing, I will write it as allowed VLAN add 2. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm adding the VLAN 2 back to the trunk thing so that it can be allowed again. Okay, it will be allowed for safe passage. Now I can do this again on the other switch as well, otherwise it will create problems because one side you did, the other side you don't. That is not how it will work, right? So switch port trunk allowed VLAN add to. Right, I save it off. If I want to see show interfaces trunk, now you should see both 1 and 2 again, right? 1 and 2 are both allowed. And if I were to check back on like the output of it, okay, let's ping it. Okay, so accounts can now ping with accounts. Let's check. Successful again. Is it clear, guys? So I hope you guys like enjoyed the session. This was supposed to be for an hour and we have completed it. I hope you learned something. Any queries, guys? Anything in particular? Thanks, Joshna. This is being recorded. So yeah, we'll get to you on the recording part, right? You will get it on YouTube as well. Okay, so Assam, you'll get it. You'll get the recording. Even it will be on like YouTube as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Any queries, let us know. Else, we will close it up. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being very interactive.
Are we done from today?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Thank you.